Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Marian Minor Cook Athenaeum. My name is Maya Ghosh, and I am one of your Ath Fellows for the rest of the day. I know. Over 100 years ago, Turks of the Ottoman Empire killed an estimated 1.5 million Armenians due to religious resentment and scapegoating of the Armenian population for the losses incurred by the Ottoman Empire during the early stages of World War I. Only in April of 2021 did the American government formally recognize the atrocity perpetuated against the Armenian people as a genocide. Tonight, we are joined by filmmaker Ani Hovannisian. Ani's most recent and critical work, The Hidden Map, was sparked by a journey to the native lands of her genocide survivor grandparents. She will highlight the history and trajectory of her family and the Armenian people, those who survived the genocide and those who did not. She has been a reporter and anchor on Armenian television for over a decade and is actively involved with the Armenian community in California and worldwide. She is a member of the Directors Guild of America, Television Academy, and the International Documentary Association. Her film, The Hidden Map, has earned more than a dozen selections and awards at international film festivals, and was considered for 3 2021 Primetime Emmys, including Exceptional Merit in Documentary Filmmaking. Her presentation is the annual Mgrublian Lecture on Armenian Studies. Now, before she joins us at the podium, just a few reminders. First, we ask that you wear your mask for the duration of the program indoors. We also ask that you take a moment to just put away your phone. Remember to be present in the moment. As well, before we invite Ani to the stage, I would like to invite up Professor Wendy Lauer, the John K. Roth Professor of History and Director of the Mgrublian Center, for some opening remarks. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm Wendy Lauer, Director of the Mgrublian Center for Human Rights, John K. Roth Professor of History. Welcome. We have a big program tonight. We're running a little bit behind. We also have some remarks from John Roth, who's kind of coming in virtually. Part of the program tonight is to honor a very special guest, Richard Hovannisian. Earlier this year, my colleague, Assistant Director Kirsi Zitter, and I were discussing this evening's plan, what would be appropriate for our annual Mgrublian Center program at this time of genocide memorialization and now the occurrence of genocide in Ukraine. We recognize the history of more than 1 million Armenians persecuted and murdered by the Turkish regime and its allies during the First World War, the millions of Jewish and other victims who were killed in the Holocaust, as well as other genocides which oddly seem to start in April, such as the Rwandan one in 1994. Millions of innocent lives lost, forced into oblivion. May their souls be at peace, their history remembered, and serve as an inspiration to end the mass suffering in Ukraine and elsewhere in the world today. It took more than a century for an American president, Biden, to recognize in 2021 what happened in Armenia in 1915 as a genocide. And Biden was the first American president to go on record that Putin's war is a campaign of genocide in Ukraine. Tonight, our focus is Armenia, but I want to pause for a moment and mention that we at the Center are organizing an event in the coming weeks involving genocide prevention and intervention experts to educate on what we can do when we feel powerless in the face of these horrors. Please check our website for updates and postings of Zoom programs that you can register for to stay engaged with our Ukrainian colleagues who are trapped there, who need to stay connected with us, feel our support and our presence. We do not want them, or us, to lose trust in the world, as Jean Amery famously wrote. Tonight we are honoring the most important scholar of Armenian history in the world. I'm not exaggerating or expressing my opinion, it's a fact. We have with us the inaugural chairholder in Armenian Studies, UCLA Professor Emeritus Richard Hovannisian, born in 1932 to a family of Armenian genocide survivors, raised in California, a graduate of UC Berkeley, a history major, and a UCLA PhD, recipient of the Guggenheim Fellowship, among many other honors. Richard Hovannisian is the author of more than 20 books on Armenian history, spanning centuries and covering all the major historic cities and provinces. It's truly breathtaking how much research, writing, editing, and publishing Professor Hovannisian has accomplished in his lifetime, and he keeps at it. Just recently at the Mgrublian Center, he helped us edit and correct a rare survivor testimony of John Hovannisian, which CMC students annotated, co-authored in a beautiful book that was published by Rowman and Littlefield in 2020. Hovannisian is a man of great stature, erudition, heart, as well as courage. When the Turkish government and its agents pursued an aggressive denial campaign seeking to suppress the history and any political recognition of it, Hovannisian was undaunted, indeed more determined, or in other words, stubborn, as Ani said to me. He's stubborn by nature. I said, no, he's determined to document every facet of the genocide and to take on the deniers, convening conferences, educating students in the classroom, and publishing the facts. His weapon was scholarship, his own and the community he built, to uphold the truth, rational thinking, and common decency. His work has been praised as formidable, admirably objective, extensive command of archives based on 6 languages, pioneering in its interdisciplinarity, invaluable, a model of historical writing about ancient and modern times, essential, indispensable. Jay Winter, the historian at Yale University of the First World War, pointed out that it was Hovannisian who made the issue of the Armenian genocide a matter for all of us. In addition, since 1972, he and his students completed a major oral history project, interviewing more than 1,000 genocide survivors, mostly from Southern California, and those tapes he donated to the U.S. Shoah Foundation for us to study. There is a reason Biden felt confident recognizing the case of Armenia's plight in the Ottoman Empire a century ago as genocide. Biden could point to the clear historical record, the undeniable empirical scholarship produced by Richard Hovannisian. We see today genocidaires openly commit the acts as official state policy of de-Ukrainization, sorry, it's a mouthful, while propagating outrageous lies and distortions, in a sense blaming the victims. We can better appreciate how important documenting the events are for justice, but also for history. Richard Hovannisian spent his life embroiled in these issues and prevailed. Thank you for fighting against the negation of the Armenian genocide and providing all of us with a deeper understanding of the Armenian people, helping to ensure the existence and legitimacy of the Armenian nation today. Now I would like to turn our attention to the screen because Professor Emeritus John Roth is going to just add his remarks and praise for Richard.
A century ago, in 1922, T.S. Eliot published a poem titled The Wasteland. Its first line calls April the cruelest month. It fits then that for more than a decade, April has been widely designated as Genocide Awareness Month. April contains so many pivotal dates in genocide's recent history. Vladimir Putin's genocidal war against Ukraine is reaching new levels of violence in April 2022. Earlier on, the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda started on April 7th, 1994. Cambodian genocide began on April 17th, 1975. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising during the Holocaust began 79 years ago today on April 19th, 1943. And the Armenian genocide began on April 24th, 1915. But April also contains much that is good. 2 Claremont McKenna College events testify to that. Tonight, for instance, the college and its Mgrublian Center for Human Rights commemorate the Armenian genocide, and in doing so pay tribute to Professor Richard Hovannisian. It has been my honor and privilege to be his friend for many years and to receive encouragement and inspiration from his long service on the Mgrublian Center's advisory board. In the spring of 2003, a generous founding gift from alumnus Lee Crawford enabled President Pamela Gann to give Professor Jonathan Petropoulos and me the green light to launch and organize college's new Center for the Study of the Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights. In April of 2015, and this is the second Good April event I want to note, the initial center, thanks to the generous endowment provided by CMC trustee David Mgrublian and his family, became the Mgrublian Center for Human Rights. All the while, from 2003 until now, Richard Hovannisian's guidance has helped the center to grow and flourish. When Jonathan Petropoulos and I organized the early center in 2003, one of the first steps was to form an advisory board that could enhance its academic and teaching mission. Richard Hovannisian was at the top of the list of scholars we asked to help us. We were so pleased and honored when he agreed to serve and then faithfully continued to do so. No one in the world has done more to advance knowledge about Armenian history or to document the Armenian genocide than Richard Hovannisian. And no member of the advisory board of the center over many years has been more loyal than he has been. His presence continues to do so much to keep the center's work grounded in awareness of the Armenian genocide and its reverberations. One of the reasons that grounding is important here at CMC is that our college, situated close to Southern California's significant and impressive Armenian community, has long had a substantial number of students of Armenian heritage. Richard's legacy to the Mgrublian Center, the CMC, will be that attention to Armenian history and culture continues year after year. For the thanks of the Mgrublian Center, Richard, I add my own heartfelt gratitude to you for the support, encouragement, and generous attention and caring you have given to us at Claremont McKenna College. Thanks to you, April and every month at CMC and beyond includes goodness that we so much need.
Thank you. So, Richard, thank you so much. I just wanted to point out where you are so everybody knows. John said to me when we stopped recording,
John Roth and Wendy Lauer, but especially to you. I've been inspired by the students at this university for several years. Concentration of intelligence, of commitment, gives us hope for the future. And I thank the Mgrublian family and center and the center in general for this. We've come a long way, actually. Sometimes we think, you know, it's an impossible battle of Goliath and David. But if you keep on the faith and keep fighting, the Armenian word is kamats kamats, slowly, slowly you shall achieve. Thank you.
And now I'd like to invite Ani, Richard Hovannisian's daughter, to come to the stage to bring in our program, who has continued the legacy of his research in new and innovative ways through film. I know many of my students saw the film today, so we're just delighted. So I don't know if you could want to begin your program. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today with you. I'm honored to be here with you today. And if I could be just a drop of my father and my mother and the people I come from, then lucky girl. I'm also really honored that I was able to spend dinner with such bright, engaged young people, all of you. The questions you ask, the stories you tell, the knowledge that identity matters and that unity matters. And the more we know about one another, the more we know about where we come from, we're able to appreciate where others come from. I want to thank the Mgrublians, the Center for Human Rights, Professor Lauer, Kirsty, Maya, everybody for having me here. And if there's anyone who embodies humanity in the face of the greatest inhumanity in life, it's my mother, Vartited, rose petal in Armenian, Vartited Kocholosian Hovannisian, who, if she was here right now, as she would always be by Papa's side, would be beaming with pride that this story lives on. My mother, Mama Vart, Mama, went to heaven on Thanksgiving, but she was the ultimate humanitarian who said, be kind to all living things. And she would say, Menk Hayenk, we are Armenian. And she would say, we are all human beings. Mama was born in Kharkov, Ukraine, Kharkov, where what is happening today. And she was in Kharkov because her parents, Hovagim and Khunguhi Kocholosian, my grandparents, survivors of the genocide from Erzurum and from Ordu, were among the only ones in their families to survive. They made it out, each with their incredible, almost unbelievable story of survival. But they did. And they ended up in their new home. They all did, all over the world. And their new home was Kharkov, Ukraine. Bobby lost 9 brothers and sisters, his parents, his grandparents, a village of 3,000 within his country that was decimated. My grandmother, Mami Khunguhi, beautiful Mami, saw her 6-month-old twins disappear, and then her father was murdered, her mother taken on marches where most people didn't survive, but they were lucky or blessed or watched over and determined and lived, and here we are. This is my grandmother, Khunguhi, in an orphanage with other orphans, and these are her parents. Haranush, whom I hear was saint-like, and Garabed, who was shot to death. They wasted a bullet on him. Many times Turks would say Armenians aren't worth a bullet. He was a successful, smart merchant. He had hazelnut orchards in Ordu overlooking the Black Sea. He was a loving father, and this is where it ended. This is my grandmother Khunguhi with her 2 children, Nazig and Vartited, in Kharkov, Ukraine. My mother is, this one, and this is Nazig. And this is Mami Khunguhi, who endured unspeakable horrors, but survived. I think this is as much about rebirth and resilience as it is about genocide and destruction and death. Mami and Mama Nazig, this is my mother's writing, 1943, right before leaving Kharkov, because not only did they have to survive the genocide of 1915, where the women and the children were taken out on death marches in the Syrian desert and led day after day, month after month, until they dropped. Not only that, not only were the men and boys taken and killed outright, but thereafter, when people started over again somewhere in the world, in this case, in Kharkov, Ukraine, in the world, Stalin came, Stalin's purges came. My grandfather was put in prison, miraculously made it out, and then they had to leave yet again. Displacement once again, this time to Germany, in freight trains, Nazig and Vartited, fearless, young girls without a child, but full, without a childhood, but full of strength, full of courage, full of grace and beauty, never, ever afraid. They ended up in German work camps through World War II, and with the help of people like George Mardikian, and it's a whole other story, Armenians made it out of that work camp, 2,000 Armenians, to new homes yet again. It's this story of destruction and rebirth, resilience, starting over and over again. They settled in the San Joaquin Valley. Here, this is their newspaper. Here, Mama and Mama Nazik were among the Armenians welcomed, kind of, to Fresno, California, where my mother worked in the fields, in the vineyards, in the 110-degree heat as a high school student, and went to Sanger High School and said, when she had to put her hand to say the Pledge of Allegiance, she said, how, in her first week in the United States, do I pledge allegiance to the United States when I'm allegiant to Armenia? And she asked this to a man who was very influential in their lives, the last prime minister of the Republic of Armenia before it fell. His name is Sevan Hovannisian. He said, Vartiter, young, beautiful girl, this country has welcomed you. You can have allegiance to both Armenia and to the United States. While Vartiter was growing up, Richard was growing up on a farm in Tulare, California. There too, survivors of the genocide. Survivors. These are people where 1.5 million Armenians were killed or died in the marches from the place that was kind of the eastern half of Turkey today, if you could imagine. Much of what is today Turkey used to be historically Armenia. Armenians have lived there for millennia, and it was in 1915 when the Ottomans said, we don't want them here anymore, and they had this master plan to get rid of them, literally a master plan. So most died, a few survived. Among the survivors also were Kaspar and Sevan Hovannisian, who went to a place that was similar to their native Kharpert, on the fields, working in the fields, in the farms, and started life anew there. What did I do here? Brian? Did I do something here? Did I press something? Now it'll work? They had 4 sons. My father, Richard, right here, grew up in a place where people didn't know about Armenians. It wasn't taught in the schools. Sometimes it wasn't even taught at home because people were trying to get by, to live a new life, to create a new identity, away from death, away from destruction, and just trying to belong. But young Richard, who didn't like the farm life, that's Bobby Kaspad, and Richard is the one down there. He says, he always says I was the he felt like the odd one out. He didn't belong on the farm, he felt. He felt like he needed to learn to travel the world to learn about Armenia, and ultimately, I think he knew that he would be teaching the Armenian story. Oh, there he is as a thespian in his high school. But here he meets Mama Vartited, right here, this beautiful girl, and my father. They're at Fresno State, and they're at Model United Nations. What a place to be together. And this is on the farm where they are now together, and this is the last prime minister of the Republic of Armenia, Sevan Hovannisian, who knew that these two belonged together far before they did. They came from the same soil, but from different worlds. She was very Armenian, had already gone through war and war again, and was fearless and strong in her Armenian identity. And he was searching for it. And together they created. First, they created this. She was one of two women, Mama was. When people said, Armenians? Women? She went from Sanger High School in the fields of Fresno to become one of two medical students at the University of California, Los Angeles. 5 schools, including Stanford and USC, I just found this, were giving her scholarships. And Richard, here it's written in Armenian, was getting scholarships to learn and teach Armenian. These are people who have come from almost annihilation to recreate again, like so many of our people have. So many different ethnicities and heritage. You think of your own family stories, where they came from, what it took to get here. And if you don't know, or you do know, but just a little bit, please pick up your phones and talk to your parents and talk to your grandparents. Ask them their stories. Ask them to share things with you, because when it's gone, it's gone. And if it's preserved, that's when it can have life again and be a part of living history. That's Mama on the right, over there. And I'm telling this not because it's a family story. It is, but it's much more than that. It shows human resilience. It shows what it takes for a person, a family, a people to overcome the most unspeakable, unthinkable horrors and give again, and create again, and live again. This is when Mama became a medical doctor and Papa had just gotten his master's degree. She had him beat by a few years. They got married on March 2nd, 1957, so they were just shy of the 65th anniversary when Mama said it's time. And then 4 children were born. I was the 3rd one. These are my grandparents, Mami and Babi, Mama, and Rafi Armenani Garo. And 8 grandchildren. And here are even more grandchildren from my father's side. And in this humble abode in Fresno, California, when I was a child, survivors of the genocide would gather. They would gather as we 8 grandchildren would be playing hide and seek and duck, duck, goose and jumping over bushes. And they would navigate the pain of the past and the hope for their future, for our future, not theirs. The pain of those horrors that they shared quietly seeped into us. They didn't want us to feel that or hear that, but I heard my grandfather Hovagim's nightmare screams. I saw my grandmother Khunguhi's silent tears, but they were so loving, so nurturing, and they wanted to make sure that we had the best life possible. That's me and my brothers and cousins. And there's that station wagon took us back and forth from LA to Fresno all our lives. In the beginning, it says Hi Enk, the license plate. It means we're Armenian. And there would be demonstrations on April 24th, a few days away. Even then, we would remember, that's me and my brothers. We would say we would want justice. We would want the world to know that Armenians exist. The fact that Armenians thrived for thousands of years and created before almost being wiped out. But you know, growing up in the United States, then few people knew. I was just sharing with the people, Maya and others at our table, that in high school I was one of 2.5 Armenians at Pali High. And when I'd say I'm Armenian, they'd say, Iranian, Indian? No, I'm Armenian. And so to be here today, and to be at a school last week with 700 middle and high school students, and to have a film now, a documentary that is airing locally, and now PBS wants to air it nationally, do you know what a relief that is? Do you know what a weight that is, what a burden that is that's lifted? That people know who we are? That as much as Turkey tries to say this never happened, which means kind of like you never existed, we're here. So I also grew up with the voices of my grandparents. This is my grandfather. About the genocide, about his experiences. These are the things we have to do. We have to document. My grandfather died months after that. This is Mami Khanguhi, my heart, my mother's mother. My mother who, if I could describe to you the essence of her complete, pure humanity, you would melt if she were here today. And you would also be empowered, because she would have told you that you can do and be anything you want to in life, and don't let anyone hold you back, and be proud of who you are. My father and mother, as he was starting to teach and write books, and he wrote many books, and they gave us a good life. And we grew and we got married, and all of us had kids, and all these kids are growing up as Americans, and they're growing up as Armenians. These are 2 of my kids, and these are 5 of their 14 grandchildren. One day I knew I would tell the Armenian story. I grew up with this in my core, and I was also a broadcast journalist and a producer, and I was loving the work I had, traveling the world, telling nonfiction stories, but I said, I have to tell the Armenian story. So one day, my father said, we will go to historic Armenia together, and I very said yes. Quickly through my first of 4 trips to historic Armenia, to people would call it Western Armenia, because it's west of where present-day Armenia is, which is about 1/10 of what Armenia used to be. But these lands are the lands that I know as Armenia. The smell, the touch, the feel, the stories. But, you know, this is a place that's not even historic Armenia. This was an American missionary school for Armenians. And the first Armenian writing I saw was this kind of faint writing in what was a church. And it was about it's a saying about God, about faith, about Christianity. And as much as Turkey has tried to erase everything, wherever you go, I started to realize wherever I went that there's always something left. Here in a wall in a park, they had taken apart a gravestone and used it to build a wall in a park. Tu Bahya Zain, 1892. Now it's all Turkish, but there are still signs of Armenia. I want to talk about this place. It's called Musadagh, and Franz Werfel wrote this book, 40 Days of Musadagh. There's one place in all of Turkey. In all of Turkey, there is one place that remains Armenian. It's a little village in Musadagh. This was a book, a very famous book that was supposed to become a very famous film, but the Turkish government stopped it from happening. In this place, the Armenians defended for 40 days and were able to repel the Turks for 40 days. These are the 6 villages. Uh-oh, now what have I done? Brian, what have I done? Let's see. And now there are kids living there. Well, this village is not Armenian. I also had to come to terms with the fact that all these people that I grew up thinking Turks killed us. I also learned when I went there that not all Turks are bad. That many Turks don't even know or have been taught the wrong history or are bad. Some are, I see that in them. But many of them want to be free of that crime of their forebears. They want to live in truth. So this is in Musaled, and a little girl, you can't help but love people. I can't blame her. And I think of who are you? Who do you come from? Maybe you have Armenian blood, and this is a church that I have a friend whose great-grandfather built a church in Musaled. But the genocide happened, and then they had to leave it unfinished. But this one village is still Armenian. It's called Vakıf. People have orchards and so forth. And I met a 100-year-old man, born... Pareces. Ինչպես եք? Սերանոնի ինչ է?
Աբեդիս,
Աբեդիս ծեր մագանոնի ինչ է?
Բեմերյան,
Որ դարին ծնած եք, գիտեք?
14-ի ծնունդս, ինայ 14 է, բայց 15-ին 2 տարի դուրս,
Հա։ 15-ին ցկեցիք եւ
այո, Օսմանյան բեզությունը լրնդեր է հայերը,
ծրացիները գիտեն որ հայու դուներու մեջ կաբրին։
գիտեն թաբիկ է, բայց չեն գիտեր, պատրաստ դուն մի եկավ նստավ այդ դուն օշներ է, տատիկա գիտեն,
Ինչ է ծեր պատկամը հայ ժողովրդին եւ մանավանդ հայ երիտասարդության։
պետք է հիշես մեզ, ասան կյոմը գա, ոսալ հերան, 6 կվեր է, մեկը մնացեր է, հայգական, մեջենիս այլած չգա, ամպորնու կեցողները հայ է, հայությունը ես տարով, գնում նոսրանով յանակ քիչնա,
Պետք է հայ մնանք։
այո, յանա միսեր որ մեր դեղ ազատ է, փոխենք, որոնք չէ, լավ չի ատիկա,
Ձեզի միշտ պիտի հիշենք։
մենք արքի հիշենք,
He passed away the following year, but I'm glad that I met him because now he remains alive in our memory. Has anyone heard of Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors? So this is Marash, which was it's known for its pepper, actually for their red pepper, their hot pepper. They call it Marash pepper. This is also Ingiliga. This is that lower portion of Turkey. And Steve Kerr's grandfather, Stanley Kerr, Steve Kerr is the coach of the Golden State Warriors, and he's very successful. He was an NBA player, and now he's a very outspoken and very successful coach. His grandfather, Stanley, and his grandmother, Elsa, were responsible for saving the lives of more than 10,000 Armenians in Marash after the genocide. They went with the Near East Relief and to help the Armenians in Turkey. They dedicated their lives to the Armenians. Here, Stanley writes home from Marash in 1920, because after the genocide, some Armenians were told you could go back because now Turkey's going to be punished, but they were never punished, and they just killed them all over again. And then the Armenians were just gone for good. But here, he's saying that Armenians are being sent out again to their death, and many will perish. He says to his mother and father, Stanley Kerr does, that he's going to stay there, and the Turks will he will protect the Armenians with his life, and that the Turks will go onto their, I don't have the words here right now, onto their, what do you call it, property over his dead body, and that he would not leave until all the Armenians were saved. These are some of the orphans that Steve Kerr's grandfather saved. This is a German orphanage that kept Armenians, but it doesn't say that there were Armenians here. And this is the college that Steve Kerr's grandmother taught Armenian girls to be teachers in. There's no evidence of any of this in Turkey. When If you don't know the story, you're not going to know these stories. Turkeys wipe out all signs of everything Armenian. They don't say that this used to be Armenian. And here one day, a few years ago, we honored Steve and his family. Let's see.
This is
These are pictures.
memento of windows into the boundless, borderless, and timeless humanity of your family, the Kerrs.
I hope one day to do a documentary. Mount Ararat, which is the symbol of Armenian identity. It's where Noah's Ark landed. We hear of Mount Ararat and Noah's Ark. That's in historic Armenia, now in Turkey. And right on the other side of Mount Ararat is present-day Armenia. So every day Armenians wake up longingly looking at Mount Ararat saying, we want her back. Ordu is where my grandmother was born, my grandmother Khunguhi. A beautiful coastal city on the Black Sea. This is the Greek church, actually. And I went to Ordu, and I found the place where my grandmother was born. My grandmother, Khunguhi, born in 1909, with a twin brother and sister, with a wonderful life, and with a brother. The parents were taken, the twins were taken. She and her younger brother, Hovannisian, lived as orphans from a Turkish family to a Greek family, carrying 2-year-old babies for years. A very sad story of loss, but also, again, of determination to live. This is what would have been her school, but it turned into an orphanage. Instead of being a student here, Mommy was an orphan here. And to find it and to see this tree that was probably there that long ago was a very emotional experience. I had gathered stones from other places and I set them there. And this is a book that my mother had written, Zitoch Tashti Garno. And in it is this very big family tree. Anyway, there probably is no time. But if you looked at this family tree that my mother made, they're all cut off. Almost all the trees are cut off except for our branch, because my grandparents survived. But I took this book with me there, and I left it there. Because I feel like we belong. And again, in the wall of the now Turkish school, Armenian stones. Erzurum is where my grandfather was born, Zitoch. My mother, in her last months of life, always had this with her. Anyway. Here I'm looking at a map that my grandfather and mother had drawn, and others, of the village, of who lived where in the village. These are the cranes, the famous Armenian cranes that bring news of longing from the homeland. And here it says, on the way to my grandfather's village, Turk Soykrimi, this is saying that this is where the Turks were slaughtered. The Turks who killed the Armenians have monuments talking about this is where the Armenians killed the Turks, or the Turks were killed. And again, in my grandfather's village now, a stone, and this is of a young boy who died in 1890-something. I don't know why, and a beautiful girl, and how can I have anything but love for her? There are Turks living there now. And this is a home that I think is my grandfather's home. And my father took me to it. And I can't explain the feeling. It's yours but not yours. You're allowed to touch it but not allowed to touch it. It's Turkish now. It was all death here. Nobody left in this village. No sign except for those stones and memories of things Armenian. And I went to that door and I opened it. And my father said, "Don't open it, Ani. There's a military base half a mile away. They're watching over you. And this is somebody's home, and they could take you to prison." And I said, "That's okay, Papa." It just didn't matter, because I felt like it's ours. And I went in, and it's now used as a stable. And I let the chicken go. And I was so happy to send that chicken to freedom. This is
Babi kudun diegazem, ditok kyuga, kudunid mechkainazem, melduni mechkainazem, kidem vortunku, vestigutunat hos ansutir, endanyok, lav dariner, tujvar dariner, hedo anhedatsav, merjogoburt osteren. Բայց դունդ կա, մենք կանք, միշտ պիտի մնանք, բաբի հովագին։ Եվ պիտի հիմա քեզի ծքեմ այդ հողերը, որ մամին, քյուղեն, Անիեն, Սոֆինեն, Դարոնեն, ամեն դեղեն հավաքեցի, պերի հոս պիտի մնա քեզի հետ, մեզի հետ։ Մեզի կյանք դիր, այդ կյանքովը մենք պիտի շարունակենք։ Բաբի, ասի օրդիեն է, ասի մամին թբրոցեն և որպանոցեն է, ասի բոլոր մեր եկեղեցիներեն և անքերեն, և աս կոշիկները բաբի, եթե գրնայք ու մեկ քայլը դարնել, բայց միշտ Միշտ հետս ես, քեզի լավ կհիշեմ և միշտ պիտի սիրեմ, բաբի ջան։
I should probably end here, but I'll say, I don't know what time it is. What time is it? Okay, I'll speak for 5 more minutes, if I can. I discovered much more. Places, people, and here in this house in Kayseri, I met a Scottish explorer. And this man, not Armenian for sure, was taking pictures very caring, with great care and precision in this old Armenian house. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Steven Sim." And he was kind of perturbed by my question, but he ends up, this man stumbled upon our relics of thousands of churches and monasteries and cemeteries that still remain. 30 years earlier as an architecture student from Scotland. And he was so taken by it that he spent the next 30 years going every year quietly with a backpack and a camera to document what's left of the Armenian past. And I didn't leave him alone. Here together we discovered this, what used to be an Armenian church that was now a Kung Fu center. And this is in Harpert, a monastery. And we dug and found together, and I cared about the people. He not so much. He cared about what the stories the buildings have to tell. And it took me a year, but I convinced this man to let me go with him to historic Armenia to tell the story via a documentary. And the documentary was going to be about him, and it ended up being about the coming together of both of our worlds, an Armenian and a non-Armenian. But I said goodbye for a month to Sofin and Daron and Armenio, my Venezuelan Armenian husband. This is 2014. And I set off with Peter, a cameraman who was in the hospital for a week in Mush, almost didn't make it, and my friend Sharon. And this is the city of Ani. And we set out to tell the story of Armenia with Stephen Sim, the explorer. We weren't supposed to be doing this. You're not allowed to tell this story. I certainly was not allowed to make a documentary. I was a tourist, but I was unafraid. When people would ask me what you're doing, I'd say I'm looking at where my grandparents are from. He would avoid people. I would focus on people, including him. This is the city of Ani, which is the city of 1,001 churches. At the entrance, you now pay admission to get in, but nowhere does it say anything about it being Armenian. This place, Stephen has come to 150 times. 150 times. They say every house had a steeple, so they called it the city of 1,001 churches, the city of Ani. And here someone has written in 1903, may the home of your destroyers be destroyed. An Armenian has written it in one of the church walls in 1903, because there was already destruction happening. And this place had already been destroyed before the genocide. And an Armenian from Gadin, from where my grandfather is from, wrote, may the destroyer may your destroyer's home be destroyed. And we discovered places like Khutskong, 5 beautiful 800-year-old churches, now 1. So The Hidden Map is a film that was made based on this. We got into some trouble. Cars not starting in the middle of nowhere, the Turkish military coming to rescue us. They could have done much worse than that. They could have said, what are you doing here in the middle of nowhere, climbing 3 hours to get to that monastery that you just saw? But these guys ended up being good guys who were just doing their time as Turkish soldiers and not very happy with their life in Turkey, actually, and told us about it. Arshal Gorky, the famous artist, is from Van, from this village where I found bones, human bones, and the people who live there now. Steve and I discovered a lot underneath the ground, up above on mountaintops. This was a hidden chapel outside of Van, Monastery of the Spirits. No one had probably seen it except for a treasure hunter who built that wooden ladder thinking that he would find gold. Because anywhere you see a cross in Turkey, Kurds or Turks think that there is treasure hidden. They live with these fairy tales. And evidence of Armenian life and creation and destruction, teetering on falling, but standing stoically. This is just a few miles from the present-day Armenian border. People who have Armenian blood in them, who are now coming out and saying, I'm Armenian. Hope, alive. Digin Bayzar and Baron Sarkis from Dikranagert, the last living Armenians in historic Armenia, who are no longer, who also set me out to continue discovering what lies beneath the surface of modern-day Turkey. So The Hidden Map was born. It's a film that took me 7 years to make. It's 50 minutes long, and as I said, I am so gratified that you've invited me here today not to watch the film, but perhaps to introduce it and to introduce our story. And the fact that this was televised last year. It was on the air when President Biden recognized the genocide. It was on NBC-LX, which is a new NBC network. And now it's airing on PBS locally, and I'm so filled with a lot that it will very likely be shown on up to 330 stations God willing, it hasn't happened yet, but starting in June, I'm almost afraid to say it, but PBS really wants to send it to its member stations across the country. And with that, I know that the voices and the people and the stories that didn't have a chance to speak or might otherwise be gone have life anew. Do we have time for the 2-minute trailer?
The more I look, the more bones I see. What on earth is a huge structure like this doing here in the middle of nowhere? I was warned against coming and warned to not be interested in Armenian things because the Armenian past of Turkey was a forbidden past.
7,000 miles away in Los Angeles, I, an American Armenian, was living cut off from the physical touch of my roots. My grandparents' voices and a lifetime of longing drove me across the world to find my beginnings. That's when I met this Scottish explorer.
What's your name?
Stephen.
Stephen.
Now, we're off to uncover places not found on modern maps, civilizations that have vanished from the face of the earth.
I'm looking for Ermeni.
Ermeni buradan gitti, göç etti.
Forbidden zone. Don't photo.
There it goes. If somebody maliciously demolished an historic building in Britain, they would be prosecuted.
Where did the Armenians go?
I don't know. You know better than me.
There could be no justification for what was done in these lands.
Probably nowhere else has already so much been destroyed. I'm here to give those monuments a voice.
We have lost past.
Bu bağlar Ermeni bağıdır. Tarihle artık yüzleşmeliyiz.
Follow the clues. Look beneath the surface, and you'll begin to see the hidden map. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
think we have time for a question or two, right?
We do. We'll now move into the Q&A portion of the evening. If you have a question, we ask that you stand behind either of these two microphones. And when you come up to the front, please introduce yourself, name, year, major. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melanie Kalla. I'm a first year at CMC and I'm dual majoring in history and government. First off, I'd like to say thank you for speaking with us at the head table. That was such a wonderful conversation. And then talking to us about your family history and about the Armenian genocide. This talk has been truly amazing. So when it comes to approaching this history, you mentioned how a lot of Armenians don't often talk about their experience with the genocide, either because they're trying to move on with their life or because they don't want to, unleash that burden, I guess, they feel on the upcoming generations. So what advice do you have to people who want to explore their family history or who want to explore history in general when it comes to approaching really difficult conversations?
I'd say be persistent, be patient and be persistent, and don't take no for an answer. Maybe take no in the beginning, but I think that the more interest you show, the more time you spend, whether it's with your parent or grandparent or whoever it is, when you open that door a little bit, you will find that ultimately it will gush out because it has to. And if you don't open that door, it's never going to open and you'll never know what was in there. So be patient, be persistent, be determined, be sensitive. Don't give up. I guess that goes for everything in life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm a junior here.
Hi,
and
Jack.
I'm studying science management. And I was wondering, through all the atrocities and hardships that you, your parents, and your grandparents faced, what kept you guys hopeful and what helped you remain having a positive outlook on life?
They gave that to us. You know, I think some people maybe might grow up with this thinking of being a victim. I never grew up a victim. I think I was very fortunate to have parents and grandparents who didn't put that on us. They put endless opportunity. That's how they raised us. They raised us proud. They raised us knowledgeable of our identity, of our past, and said that knowing that or identifying that or sharing that with others is a good thing. Be proud of who you are. And I think it was just also just life. I don't even think they told us that. I think it just kind of seeped into us. And for me, personally, well, that's the only way it could be, is that when I grew up with my grandparents and with my mother and my father and with others, to see what they have been through, to see what they have endured and lived through and created and where they've brought us, who am I to cower? Who am I to say, oh, I'm just gonna live a dandy old, I do live a dandy life, but there's more to life than that. And and all of it matters. All of it matters. So for me, it wasn't a burden. For me, it was just a part of who I am. And I think a lot of that has to do with how our parents raised us, how they made us American and Armenian and human all together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your talk. My name's Grant Theroff. I'm curious, you talked a lot about the memory, not only of the importance of remembering the Armenian past, but also of all of these roots to where Armenians were rerouted. For instance, I believe you said your Venezuelan husband, Venezuelan, Armenian, Karakov, all over. I guess I'm curious about how you view kind of these different identities that are infused into the Armenian diaspora post-genocide, especially, for instance, considering the way that Western Armenian culture and language is today endangered, and the importance of remembering these different subsets of the Armenian community.
Well, I think that's an incredible observation, not just a question, but for me, and I think for many Armenians, for some Armenians it just doesn't matter, but for those for whom it does matter, I go to Egypt or Lebanon or wherever I go, to East LA or wherever I go, I look for the Armenians. And the Armenians in those communities have also, some Armenians, have kept their identity alive with church, with school when possible, with culture and heritage and music and song. So I feel like that enriches us. I feel like, I was also just saying that, you know, because of the genocide, we're everywhere in the world. Without the genocide, I don't know that we would have been everywhere in the world. We would have been in our home, in our home, our native home. But now I guess we have many homes, and all those homes are part of us too. So for me, it's very important that all the diasporas, all the diasporan Armenians connect with one another and not forget. Some people say Western Armenia, 100 years, let's move on. But to me, it all goes back to Armenia, those roots, because those are the roots, and we've grown from those roots to all the different places and all the different stories that we are now that create the complete picture. So I respect and love and look for the richness and story and uniqueness of all of those communities. And it's a big challenge also, because it's easy to get lost in all those countries and communities. And it takes whatever it takes for us to keep it alive. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Ani Hovannisian for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. If you'd like to watch the film, it's going to be on KCET on April 24th, I believe at 2:30 p.m. So we're all in Southern California, and I think we all get public television. But so it will be on April 24th, which is actually Armenian Martyrs' Day. It's the day around the world when the genocide is commemorated by all. So thank you. I just want to say one more thing, Margaret. Hold on. So this is a handle that I found in my grandfather's village. It's in the film, actually. And this is something that my grandparents probably, a jug that they drank from. And Margaret, your people are from Harpert, right? I'm holding on to this, but they're touching this, so it has Harpert soil on it. And this is an experience that, it's in the film. But Margaret, this is a doll that I had made in Armenia so that when people watch PBS and they pledge to PBS, they get a certain gift. And one of the gifts I made are these dolls made by women in Armenia today, women going through very difficult times. So it's a traditional Armenian doll of beauty and strength and resilience and Armenian soil now on it. So Margaret, you are kind of you're the catalyst and the person, and you're the water that was poured on that seed and made it stronger. So it's tiny, and I thank all of you. I wish that I had more of these, but I'm giving it to you.